Have you noticed subtle changes in someone you love, small shifts that tug at your heart, but don't quite make sense? Death in old age rarely comes out of nowhere. Months, sometimes a year before the end, the body whispers warnings, quiet signs that are easy to miss until it's too late to act. Meet Harold, an 80-year-old from Oregon, whose family almost overlooked these clues until they learned to listen. In this video, we'll uncover 5 subtle signs that an elderly person might be in their final year. Changes Harold's loved ones saw but didn't understand at first. Recognizing them early can help you prepare, cherish every moment, and ensure their last days are wrapped in love and dignity. Stay with us, these insights could change how you care for those you hold dear. Sign 1. Significant weight loss. Harold's daughter, Sarah, first noticed it at a family dinner last fall. The man who'd once piled his plate high with roast and potatoes barely touched his meal, his fork moving slowly before he set it down. His sweater, once snug, now hung loose around his shoulders, and his belt needed an extra notch to stay up. At 80, Harold had always been sturdy. Years of chopping wood and tending his farm had kept him strong, but over the past year, he'd lost weight without trying. A subtle shift Sarah brushed off as just aging. Then she saw it wasn't stopping. His cheeks grew hollow, his hands thinner, and his appetite faded more each month. Significant, unintentional weight loss is one of the earliest signs an elderly person may be nearing their final year, a quiet signal the body sends when it's winding down. It's not just about looking frail, it's about what's happening inside, systems slowing, nutrients slipping through the cracks. For Harold, it started with little things. Food didn't taste the same anymore. His favorite apple pie felt bland, the joy of eating lost as his sense of taste dulled with age. He'd skip breakfast, nibble at lunch, and wave off dinner with a tired, "I'm not hungry." Sarah thought he was just picky, but it was deeper than that. As the body prepares for its final stage, it often stops signaling hunger the way it once did. The brain no longer pushes for fuel, and digestion weakens, leaving proteins and vitamins unabsorbed. Muscle mass fades fast, not just from age, but from a body that's pulling back, conserving what little energy it has left. Harold's steps grew unsteady, his grip on the axe handle weaker, and a fall in the barn one icy morning left him shaken. That loss of strength didn't just make life harder, it opened the door to infections, his immune system too frail to fight like before. Sarah tried to help, cooking his old favorites, blending protein shakes, but the weight kept dropping. A doctor visit revealed more. Harold's kidneys weren't processing nutrients well, a silent decline tied to years of wear and a touch of heart failure creeping in. Conditions like these, cancer, organ failure, even depression, often hide behind weight loss, showing up long before other symptoms scream for attention. "I didn't see it as a big deal," Sarah admits, her voice soft with regret. "I thought he'd bounce back, but when the body sheds pounds it can't spare." It's not about willpower, it's a sign of a bigger shift. Harold's family learned late what it meant, but they shifted focus. Small, soft meals he could manage, sips of water to keep him comfortable, moments around the table sharing stories instead of forcing food. He still smiled, Sarah says, and that's what mattered. Practical tip: watch for unexplained weight loss, loose clothes, a shrinking frame, less appetite. Don't push big meals if they resist. Offer soft, nutrient-rich snacks like yogurt or mashed fruit. Instead, comfort matters more than calories now. Check with the doctor, hidden conditions might be at play, and early care can ease their days. "I wish I'd known sooner," Sarah reflects. "It wasn't about fixing him, it was about making him feel loved." Harold's thinner frame wasn't just age, it was his body whispering its limits, a call to cherish every bite, every laugh they still shared. Sign 2. Extreme fatigue and weakness. Harold used to start his days early, feeding the chickens, tinkering in his shed, chatting with neighbors over the fence. But last winter, his son Michael noticed a change. The man who once bounded out of bed now lingered under the blankets, his eyes heavy even after a full night's sleep. By noon, he'd settle into his armchair, too tired to finish his tea, let alone fix the leaky faucet he'd promised to tackle. At 80, some slowing down was expected, but this was different, a deep, unshakable exhaustion that rest couldn't touch. Extreme fatigue and weakness often creep in during an elderly person's final year, a sign the body is rationing its dwindling energy. It's not just tiredness, it's a signal that organs are winding down, saving strength for the essentials. As life nears its close, for Harold, simple tasks became mountains. Walking to the mailbox left him winded, buttoning his shirt took twice as long, and he paused mid-sentence, too weary to find the words. Michael thought he was just being stubborn when he stopped joining them for Sunday walks, but it wasn't choice, it was necessity. As the heart pumps weaker and circulation slows, oxygen doesn't reach muscles like it used to, leaving them frail and unsteady. Metabolism shifts to no longer burning fuel for action. The body hoards what it can, turning Harold into a sleeper who napped through afternoons, his once busy hands still. One day, he tried lifting a bag of feed in the yard and crumpled, breathless, a stark reminder of how much had changed. That weakness didn't just steal his routines, it made him vulnerable, his body less able to fend off colds that lingered longer than they should. Michael felt the sting of it most. "Dad was always the strong one," he says, his voice catching. Seeing him too tired to stand broke something in me. Harold hated it, too. Pride stung as he leaned on a cane, frustration flaring when he couldn't keep up. He'd snap, "I'm fine," then sink back, drained, proving he wasn't. The family pushed at first, urging him to move, to eat more, but it only wore him out faster. A doctor explained, this wasn't laziness, it was Harold's body redirecting energy, a natural step toward the end. They learned to let him rest, bringing tea to his chair, reading aloud the paper he couldn't hold. He'd smile when I sat with him, Michael recalls. That's when I knew it wasn't about fixing him, it was about being there. Studies show this fatigue signals a tipping point when the body can't recover like before. It's time to shift from pushing to comforting. Practical tip: don't fight the tiredness, let them nap when they need. Keep tasks small and close, like a chat by their chair instead of a walk. Offer warm drinks or light blankets for comfort. Energy's low, so warmth helps. Watch for sudden drops. If they're too weak to sit up, call a doctor, it might be more than fatigue. I stopped asking him to be who he was, Michael says softly. I just held his hand through who he is now. Harold's quiet days weren't defeat, they were his body's gentle goodbye, a chance to rest in love. Sign 3. Increased confusion or withdrawal. Harold's wife, Margaret, always said he had a mind like a steel trap, sharp with dates, names, and stories from decades past. But last spring, she noticed him falter. He'd ask the same question twice in an hour, "What day is it?" or wander into the kitchen, puzzled, as if he'd forgotten why he was there. At 80, he'd never been forgetful, but now, he'd lose track mid-conversation, his eyes glazing over as words slipped away. Increased confusion or withdrawal often marks an elderly person's final year, a subtle but profound shift as the mind begins to fade. It's not just absent-mindedness, the brain, starved of oxygen and nutrients as circulation slows, struggles to keep up, leaving gaps where clarity once stood. For Harold, it wasn't just memory, it was a retreat, a quiet pulling away from the world he'd once commanded. It started small. He'd forget where he parked the truck he'd driven for 20 years, or call Margaret by his sister's name, then laugh it off. But soon, the laughter stopped. He'd sit on the porch for hours, staring at nothing. The lively chatter he'd once filled the house with replaced by silence. Margaret tried to draw him out, asking about the old barn he'd built, flipping through photos, but he'd nod vaguely, his answers short, his interest gone. The brain's decline isn't just physical, emotions dull too. Conversations tire, and the bustle of life feels overwhelming. Harold's family noticed he'd shy from gatherings, once his joy, now too loud, too much. Some days, he'd snap irritated when prodded or drift into a calm so deep, it felt like he was already half gone. "He's still in there," Margaret would say, but the man who'd planned their trips and told tall tales was slipping through her fingers. One afternoon, he wandered to the edge of their property, lost in a place he'd known for 50 years. Michael found him, confused but unhurt, and brought him home, heart sinking as he realized this wasn't just a bad day. The doctor confirmed it. As blood flow weakens, the brain falters, moments of lucidity fade into fog, a sign the body's preparing to let go. Margaret felt helpless watching him withdraw, but pushing him to engage only frustrated him more. She learned to sit beside him instead, holding his hand, humming tunes he'd loved. He'd squeeze my fingers sometimes, she says, tears in her eyes. That was enough. Studies show this mental shift signals a turning point when the mind can't keep pace. It's time to focus on peace, not pressure. Harold's silence wasn't rejection, it was his way of resting, his mind easing into the end with those he loved still near. Practical tip: don't force talk if they're quiet. Sit close, speak softly, or play familiar music to comfort them without strain. Keep their space simple and safe. Fewer choices reduce confusion. If they wander or seem lost, check with the doctor. It might be more than age. I stopped begging him to remember, Margaret whispers. I just stayed, and he knew I was there. Harold's fog wasn't failure, it was his mind's gentle goodbye, a call to love him as he was, not as he'd been. Sign 4. Frequent infections and slow healing. Harold's granddaughter, Lily, used to tease him about his iron health. He'd shrug off colds with a day of rest and mend cuts from the barn in no time. But last summer, that changed. A scratch from a rusty nail turned red and swollen, lingering for weeks, despite ointment and care. Then came a cough that wouldn't quit, a fever that dragged him to bed, and a urinary infection that hit hard out of nowhere. At 80, Harold wasn't invincible anymore. Frequent infections and slow healing became a glaring sign his body was nearing its final year. It wasn't just bad luck. His immune system, once a fortress, was crumbling as organs slowed and blood flow weakened, leaving him open to every germ and delaying every recovery. It crept up quietly. A cold in June stretched into July, sapping his strength when he'd once shaken it off fast. A bruise on his shin from bumping the table stayed purple far too long, and a small sore on his foot reopened with every step. Lily noticed he'd wince more, tire faster, and skip meals when sickness struck. His body couldn't fight and fuel itself at once. The science is stark. As circulation falters, oxygen and nutrients don't reach tissues like they should, slowing healing to a crawl. The immune system weakens, 2 white blood cells lag, and antibiotics lose their punch, turning minor bugs into stubborn FOs. Pneumonia loomed as a threat, a shadow Harold's doctor warned about after that lingering cough. Bedridden, he'd mutter, I'll be fine. But each infection left him paler, thinner, a cycle wearing him down. Lily felt it hardest when he landed in the hospital with a fever no one saw coming. He'd never been this sick before, she says, her voice tight. I thought medicine would fix it, but the truth settled in. His body wasn't bouncing back, it was signaling surrender. Chronic conditions like his mild diabetes made it worse, quietly taxing his defenses, while stillness from fatigue bred sores that wouldn't heal. The family pushed more pills, more tests, but relief was fleeting. The doctor shifted their focus. It's not about curing now, it's about care. They stopped chasing miracles, keeping him clean, hydrated, and calm instead. A cool cloth on his forehead, a gentle rub of lotion on his dry skin. It wasn't a fix, but it was peace. He'd smile faintly, Lily recalls. That's when I knew he felt us there. Research backs it. Repeated infections mark a tipping point. When healing stalls, the end nears, and comfort trumps cure. Practical tip: watch for lingering colds, sores that won't close, or sudden weakness. Don't dismiss them as small. Keep skin moisturized and clean to prevent sores. Offer water often. Hydration helps more than you think. If infections pile up, talk to a doctor. Palliative care might ease them more than pills. I stopped fighting the inevitable, Lily says softly. I just made him comfortable, and he rested easier. Harold's fragile frame wasn't failing, it was whispering its limits, a call to hold him close through the storm. Sign 5. Major changes in breathing or circulation. Harold's son, Michael, always remembered his father's steady presence, the deep, even breaths as he slept by the fire, the warm hands that fixed a tractor or lifted a grandchild. But last fall, that rhythm faltered. Sitting in his recliner, Harold's chest rose and fell unevenly, slow, then a pause, then quick gasps that startled Michael. At 80, his hands grew cold, his feet icy even under socks, a bluish tint creeping into his fingertips. Major changes in breathing or circulation often signal an elderly person's final year, a stark sign the body's core is slowing. As the heart weakens and lungs tire, oxygen dwindles, pulling blood from the edges to protect what's vital. A quiet shift toward the end Harold's family couldn't ignore. It crept in slowly. He'd huff crossing the room, a trip that once took seconds now leaving him breathless. Talking tired him mid-story. He'd pause, lips parting as he gulped air, a faint wheeze trailing his words. Margaret propped pillows high at night, lying flat choked him, his cough wet and persistent. Thought it was just a cold, Michael says, but it never left. The doctor called it fluid in the lungs, common when the heart can't pump strong, a gurgle that turns sleep into struggle. Some days, Harold's breathing swung wild, deep and fast, then stilled, a pattern called chain Stokes that hinted at the end drawing near. His skin told the story too, pale, cool, mottled at the edges, circulation retreating as his heart focused inward. A walk to the porch became impossible, his legs too heavy, his breath too short. Michael hated watching it. Those pauses felt like rehearsals for goodbye, each cold hand a reminder of time slipping. Harold felt it too, frowning at his numb fingers, shifting uncomfortably as air eluded him. Can't catch it, he'd mutter, frustration fading to resignation. The family tried fans, opened windows, but the struggle was deeper, lungs and heart winding down, no fix to force them back. Studies say this shift is final, the body conserves, letting go of what it can't sustain. They stopped urging him to move, instead keeping him cozy, blankets tucked, a humidifier humming, sips of water easing his dry mouth. He'd look at me between breaths, Michael recalls, voice thick. Didn't need words, we knew. Harold's uneven gasps weren't just age, they were his body's last dance, a call to hold him close as he rested into peace. Practical tip: notice uneven breathing or cold limbs, don't panic, but don't ignore it. Prop them up to ease the strain. Keep the room cool and airy. Offer tiny sips of water, comfort's key when breath falters. If gurgling or blueness worsens, ask a doctor about relief options. It's about peace, not pushing. I stopped fearing the quiet, Michael says softly. I just stayed, letting him breathe his way. Harold's fading rhythm wasn't defeat, it was his body's gentle signal, a chance to wrap him in love as he neared the end. Harold's journey shows us weight loss, exhaustion, confusion, infections, and breathing changes aren't just aging. They're whispers of a final year. His family learned to hear them, shifting from fixing to loving, making his days peaceful. These 5 signs aren't fate, they're chances to prepare, to hold close what matters. What will you do next? Sit with a loved one, watch for these clues, share a quiet moment. Tell us below, I'd love to know your story. Subscribe for more insights to guide you through life's tender stages. Thanks for watching, see you next time.